welcome to Liverpool City Region Creating Careers. On today's episode, we've got some of the team at Mersey NHS Foundation Trust, and they make up the social work department. Hi guys, thanks for joining today. If you wouldn't mind just giving a brief introduction to yourselves, please. So we'll start with you, Anna.
Hi, my name's Anna Requisi. I'm a newly qualified social worker at a medium secure unit in Mersey Care. I'm just over halfway through, so yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Matt?
Hi, I'm Matt Knight. I'm on my second year of my social work degree, currently on placement at Ambition's Drugs and Alcohol team with Mersey Care.
Wonderful. Matt Price?
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a fourth year student on the dual nursing and social work course, and I'm currently on placement in a prison with Mersey Care.
Lovely. And Ellie?
Hi, my name's Ellie and I'm also on a dual nursing and social work programme in my fourth year, and I'm on placement with Mersey Care in a crisis team.
Wonderful, thanks very much guys. So students, before we begin, like with every episode of Creating Careers, please make sure you've completed the pre-work. It will help you to digest everything that is on offer today. If you haven't, click pause. Go to the description below. There you'll find the links to our website and you can download everything you need there and then come back to us nice and ready to proceed with today's recording. So we'll begin then. So we'll start, Anna, we'll start off with you. I know you're in your first year and your title is ASYE. We'll come back to that later, but just to start things off, I think it would be useful for students if you just give them an overview of what is a social worker.
Okay, so as a social worker, it's quite a big umbrella term, really, because of all these sort of different roles and responsibilities that you can have on different teams. One thing that brings us all together as social workers is the value base that we have behind us. But from my experience, I can talk to you about working in a hospital as a social worker and how that's different than working in the community or for a local authority. So within the hospital, we've got, how many wards do we have now? We've got six wards, 3 of them are mental illness and 3 of them are learning disability. So social work on either side, even within the hospital, is quite different depending on the patients or the service users that we are working with. So a big part of my role and the role of the other forensic social workers is to go to mental health tribunals and to go to hospital managers' hearings, and you are either supporting a person staying detained while they are treated in hospital, or you might be helping with their discharge planning and recommending that they are discharged from hospital or discharged into a low secure unit, which Mersey Care also has quite a few low secure units. They also have community teams. So the difference with community social workers, who we also work alongside, is they have responsibilities in a specific area, so within their local authority. So they'll try to arrange care for people in the community, and a lot of the time are care coordinators for patients that we have in the hospital. So I would liaise with them to get the right support in place for a person living in the community so that they're not stuck in hospital forever.
I think what would be quite useful now is to just, when people think of social work in general, that myself included, the first thing that pops into my head is social services. Now, obviously, you know, with a local authority, now obviously you guys are based at the NHS Mersey Care. So for students who are watching this, what is the difference between social worker working within the NHS and a social worker working within social services?
Okay, so a social worker in social services, I think a lot of people jump to children's services straight away, but you might also know that there's adult services in a local authority, which is social services, and they might help elderly people who are coming out of hospital after having an injury. They might help adults with mental health problems or adults with learning disabilities, any sort of vulnerable adult that there is out there. They will do a care act assessment on the person and try to get them the support that is needed in the community. Now, when it comes to a social worker within a hospital, it's really different, because you're looking after people who have been detained in a hospital, so people who are unable to live in the community at that time. So while you might speak to a community social worker to get a background of a person and see if they'd needed support beforehand and after, you are the person who is helping them while they're in that situation, while they're in hospital, which is it's a really important time for people, especially when they're unwell. So you're the person who can connect with their family members, different people who they will have been in contact with before coming into hospital. So a lot of the time it's probation, and people have come in because they've been transferred from prison into hospital, which is another kind of interesting part of the hospital social work role, because you see a lot of the legal side when it comes to mental capacity and mental health, and keeping people detained or arguing for why people shouldn't be detained, and being that link really while a person's in the legal system or have been detained for whatever reason.
No, that's great. Thank you for the overview. I mean, like I say, I myself didn't quite understand the differences between the two, so I'm sure a lot of students will find that useful to have that explained. So just, I know one more topic to cover. I said earlier that you've got the title of ASYE. What is that?
The ASYE year is an assessed and supported year in employment. So even though I qualified last year after doing a master's program, so I did my 2-year master's program in social work after doing a degree in psychology. This is something that's kind of offered to all newly qualified social workers, and you basically have a year where you're supposed to have a reduced caseload, you get more supervision, you get more support basically, and you also kind of get put on different lectures. You're supported basically to continue with your professional development, which is, you know, at first you think, oh God, I've got all this extra work to do when I should have finished being a student, but you come to realise that throughout your career as a social worker, it's really important to continue with that professional development, and it really helps you instill and carry on with those values that you had when you were a student, and you get a lot of lessons you will understand more when you're on your newly qualified year, because it makes more sense to what you're doing. Whereas when you're a student, you're doing a mix of children's, adults, you're not just in your specialism at that point. So it's I found it really, really good so far. I'm over half of the year down, and I'm hoping to continue working as a forensic or hospital social worker.
Brilliant. So it's kind of like helps you with that transition from studying as a student to becoming, you know, a professional, actually doing the job. So that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So I think from the introduction, it'll be obvious to students watching that there's lots of different courses you can study, and pathways and routes to the same destination to become a social worker. So we'll start exploring a couple of those now. Obviously, one of the routes you can go down is social work apprentice, and you can do an apprenticeship and get into it that way. That all details about that are in our pre-work. So students, make sure you have done that pre-work so you're aware of all the different pathways that are on offer. Today in our recording, we're going to focus on the university route. So we're going to start off now with Matt Knight, who is a BA student studying for an undergraduate degree. So Matt, if you wouldn't mind, you just give us an overview of the course that you're studying, please.
Yeah, of course. So I am studying with the Open University. It is a 3-year course, and I'm currently on my 2nd year. And in my 2nd year, there's a mandatory 70 working day placement, which I'm currently on with Ambitions, the drugs and alcohol team. So once I've completed this, there's then a 100-day placement in my third year, which is mandatory, which will be hopefully with the local authority, as this placement is with Mersey Care and the NHS.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So I assume then, because you're saying that you put onto placements, there's a mix between academic study and practical work placements as well.
Yes.
You mentioned the Open University, just for students who aren't aware of what the Open University is, could you just tell them about the Open University and what are the benefits of studying that way?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So the Open University is essentially a 90% online degree. So you sign up for it and you have to be working in a social care role as part of your qualifications to be applicable to study with the Open University. So how do I describe it? So basically all the information for the course, the modules is released online and you work through the course at your own rate. They have suggested amounts that you do every week and you have a tutor that kind of monitors you a little bit, but you are left to work through it at your own pace, really.
Yeah.
So I found it really useful because I had a house, I've got like a full-time job, so I could fit in the degree around my previous commitments.
Yeah, so it's that flexibility, that's the real appeal of the Open University.
Yeah.
And I suppose it removes any barriers of location, does it? So because you're learning remotely.
Yeah, of course. So the closest place I could have studied would have been Chester, but it would have been a 45-minute drive to go to lectures and things. So that was time that I couldn't really afford to waste because I live on my own. So I have to pay for my house, my bills, all the things that, come with being an adult. Because I've come into the degree sort of when I was 30.
Yeah. And so that's really interesting for students to hear because, when we talk about university route, the Open University isn't one that's come up so far in Creating Careers, so it's great to introduce that concept to students. And of course, I assume you can study the same undergraduate degree at physical universities, in our local area. But if you are looking for that flexibility to suit your lifestyle, you have got that option of the Open University.
Yeah, it's worked really well for me. I've really enjoyed working through it at my own pace. Yeah.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Matt. Now, just interesting for students to note that once you complete your undergraduate degree, your 3-year course, your studying doesn't have to stop there. You can actually continue to study in university and go on to what is called a master's degree. So that is an extra years of study, and you will get a degree that is that level up from the standard undergraduate degree. So today we've got Matt Price. Sorry, we've got two Matts, so we have to give full titles so we know which one we're referring to. So we've got Matt Price and Ellie on today, and they are studying for a master's degree that's actually a dual qualification master's. So Matt, if you wouldn't mind starting just explaining to students what a dual qualification master's is, and then Ellie, if you could follow that up by just giving an overview of the course that you're both studying, please.
Yeah, sure. So what it means is essentially is that we both qualify as nurses and social workers. So we do 4 years. It's a master's, as you say. We do separate placements, so we still do nursing placements and social work placements. But at the end, we'll be registered as social workers and nurses.
Oh, that's wonderful. Ellie, have you got anything to add about specifics on the course?
Yeah, so the course that we're doing is classed as an integrated masters. So it was a bit like what Anna was saying before, where she did a degree initially and then went into a 2-year master's degree. But with an integrated masters, you can do that from the get-go, really, from when you finish school in 6th form. And it's 4 years instead of 3. So you kind of work up to the master's level in the last year. And like Matt was saying as well, we do have our 70-day social work placement and then a 100-day social work placement. But as well as that, we have to meet our nursing requirements and do nursing placements as well throughout the course.
That's really interesting, I think, for students to hear about that dual qualification. So for the both of you, what is the benefits of doing a dual qualification in nursing and social work rather than just focusing on one of those topics?
Well, I think for me, the benefit really was that I think especially for mental health at the minute, integrated working is kind of the way forward, with different professionals working together to meet someone's needs. And I think it's really quite useful for us to have two different skill sets that actually work quite well together and are quite similar. And I know that at the minute, with the placement that I'm in a team that has both nurses and social workers, and the job description is quite similar. But obviously the nurses have strengths within medication and things like that, and the social workers have got strengths within kind of social care issues like accommodation and finances and things like that. So it's really quite useful for us to be able to use those two different backgrounds and work with both of them to meet someone's individual needs, basically.
That's interesting. It helps with your teamwork, seeing it from two different points of view. That's
Yeah.
So Matt, have you thought about, at the end of your course, then do you get to choose which direction that you want to go into professionally?
That's a question that pops up quite a lot. So obviously, because we are registered with social work and nursing, we can choose and go into one. But the whole idea is that we take a role that's joint. So we'll actually be employed as nurses and social workers, what they call integrated practitioners. So our role will be to do both at the same time.
It's a bit of a superpower, that, isn't it? Being qualified for both at once. It's very, very interesting to hear that. Thanks for sharing. And just to clarify for students, so when you're talking about an integrated master's, so you mean you go straight from maybe your key stage 5 study at sixth form or whatever point you're at, you may come into it later, but instead of going into an undergraduate degree, you're going straight into this integrated master's, so you're slowly building yourself up to a master's level. Is that correct? Is it the understanding of it?
Yeah, so I started this degree when I was 18, straight from leaving college, basically. So you kind of do your bachelor's degree and your master's degree in one, which is why it's 4 years instead of 3. But in the long run, it kind of reduces your amount of time in university, rather than doing a separate bachelor's and master's. So
yeah, wonderful. It's interesting as well to see across the group. So you're saying you've gone straight, from 18 into your studying, and then Matt Knight, you were saying earlier that you started, studying at 30. So just shows the students watching at home that, your career path will take all kinds of wonderful twists and turns, and you can get into things at any point in your life, especially when there's flexible options such as the Open University to support that.